In this video, we're going to talk about the structure of the alcohol industry, and then how that structure has changed over time, and then what are some of the impacts of how the industry has changed over time. So in general, the alcohol industry is made up of three parts before the product can get to the consumer. They consist of the producers who actually make the beverage, so make the beer, make the spirits, make the wine, make the hard cider. It has the wholesalers or the distributors who basically purchase from the producers, and then these wholesalers and distributors sell to the retailers, and it's the retailers who actually sell the products to the consumers. So there's this three-tiered system for an alcoholic beverage to be produced until it gets to the consumer that all beverages must go through. Now, who are these retailers? There are two types of retailers in general. You have your on-premise retailers. These are the retailers where alcohol can be consumed in the same location as it's sold. So this is your bars, your nightclubs, your restaurants. The off-premise retailers are exactly the opposite. It's where you can buy alcohol where it can't be consumed on-premise or where it's sold. So these are your liquor stores, your grocery stores, and basically anywhere else. Now, there's a variety of ways we regulate these alcohol retailers. Again, the retailers are the point of contact between the consumers and the alcohol industry. So it's kind of a key place and kind of a nice place for alcohol control policy advocates to implement restrictions. So we license them. We make sure they comply with current trainings and know current law. So they need to know what the minimum legal purchase laws are, for example. We can restrict where they're located using zoning regulations, so how many retailers can exist in a given area, so we can actually regulate the density. We regulate the time that these retailers can be open, both the time of the day as well as day of the week. And in some systems, either at the federal level but also at the state or provincial level, they're actually monopoly systems. So the alcohol retailers are actually a government agency. This only occurs for off-premise retailers. As far as I'm aware, there's no government-controlled bars and nightclubs. But in these cases, the government is the only source of alcohol that someone can buy from off-premise locations. Or at the very least, it's the only source of high alcohol content beverages. So it's the only source of wine and spirits, even if beer can be sold elsewhere. So the producers. So in the past, the corporations, the entities who actually produced alcohol used to be governments themselves. There used to actually be a government monopoly over alcohol production. Now that isn't nearly as common, and it's almost completely phased out. Now almost all of alcohol is produced through private corporations, from craft producers who might be owned by one or two individuals to large transnational corporations who are actually public corporations that you can buy and trade stock in. What's happening though at this producer level is that there's a lot of consolidation going on. So the large producers are slowly buying up the smaller producers to create ever larger and larger corporations. To go into detail with this a little bit, we're going to talk about AB InBev. So in 2004, the largest European beer producer was Interbrew. They purchased the largest South American beer producer, Ambev, to create InBev. And what this did was combine the third and fifth largest beer producers in the world to create the world's largest beer producer in the world. So to put that in context, combined they had sales of about 10 billion euros, which is something like probably 11 or 12 billion US dollars, and it was larger than Anheuser-Busch and SAB Miller. And typically, I'm more aware of Anheuser-Busch, I'm more aware of SAB Miller, or their brands here in the United States where I'm located, so it's kind of amazing to me that a company could even be bigger than those back at that time. But by combining these two corporations, they now had access to the markets in 140 countries, which is about 65% or 2/3 of all the countries in the world, just from this one merger. In 2008, InBev got bigger. They actually purchased Anheuser-Busch. So at 2008, Anheuser-Busch was no longer an American company for a large amount of money, $52 billion, for this sale to go through. And this created AB InBev, the largest beer produced in the world, again larger than SABMiller, whose sales reached upwards of $36 billion a year. But AB InBev was not done. They have consolidated even further. Being the largest beer producer in the world wasn't enough. AB InBev has actually purchased SABMiller, this occurred in 2016, for $100 billion. Now, SABMiller itself is a result of consolidation of different brands. It started as South African breweries who purchased Miller Brewing. And because SABMiller was so large, AB InBev actually had to spin off the United States portion of that company in order for the merger to go through. So multiple consolidations by multiple different companies creating larger and larger corporations. The largest alcohol producer in the world is now AB InBev. That includes, as far as I am aware, they produce more alcohol than the spirits companies, even though it's different products. And they have an estimated annual sales of about $55 billion. In the meantime, outside of doing this really large merger, AB InBev has also purchased multiple craft breweries with a lot of different consequences. And the list you see up on the screen will probably be out of date by the time you hear this recording. I have no doubt they will purchase more in the meantime. So why are they doing this? Why are the large corporations merging with each other, and why are they buying up small craft breweries? Well, a large part of it is trying to access new consumers. So the developed countries of the world, it's basically a concentrated market. There's really nowhere for them to grow appreciably. Yes, there are non-drinkers in the developed world, but there's really not a lot of them compared to the developing world, compared to the low-income countries, compared to the middle-income countries, which have traditionally drank alcohol that was basically brewed at home, or they just simply didn't drink alcohol in large quantities. So through these mergers they have the ability to access more markets around the world, and they have increasingly focused their activities in these low and middle income countries. They will always market, they will always advertise in the high income countries, but they're really pushing hard to get these lower income countries to drink more. They're also going to merge for simply financial reasons. So having one massive company gives them more political leverage in terms of their lobbying activities than multiple smaller companies. They can coordinate their activities better, they have larger budgets, and because they might be the only producer left in the market, they have really strong leverage to get their policies enacted. They can also be more coordinated in how they market their products. They can make sure that their regular products don't interfere with the marketing campaigns of their lighter products. In fact, they can counterbalance them. Or they can make sure, using AB InBev, for instance, that the products for Budweiser, with the Budweiser advertising, don't necessarily impact the advertising of the other brands. They can target different segments of the population in different ways, so they can have this complementary marketing within their own company rather than kind of competitive marketing. They also have greater control over the process of production itself. So in 2017, Anheuser-Busch purchased a craft brewery called Wicked Weed. When it did this, it essentially created a monopoly over South African hops. And hops is a key ingredient giving beer its bitter flavor. But by essentially purchasing the entire market of South African hops, it is preventing any other beer producer, whether craft brewery or large international brewery, from buying this one ingredient. So by doing so, and by having control of these recipes and over these ingredients, they can outcompete because simply there's no way for their competitors to get their hands on them. So one of multiple reasons why these alcohol companies and these manufacturers are merging at such great rates.